Alex Mozet, and welcome to Winner Take All, where we talk about the constant battle between large tech monopolies and traditional incumbents. So before we get into Clubhouse and Ant Financial's new valuation, yikes. Want to remind everyone that you can text us at 203-646-5159. Text Monopolies. You'll be in the running to get some swag and some other goodies. Or you'll just get updates on, when we're going live and other updates with the show. So text us if you'd like to be in touch. Next topic here, though, is, around what is going on with Jack Ma's speech that he gave back in October. We were talking about this, how Alibaba's come under fire, how now the CCP and the regulators in China have started to just go down the list in terms of kind of launching antitrust investigations into different tech monopolies. Meituan Dianping is the latest reported recipient of this kind of antitrust scrutiny. Meituan being the Uber Eats competitor, Uber competitor in China. So anyway, they're just going down the laundry list of all the different tech monopolies. China doesn't need to, like Lina Khan at the FTC. I don't know if she's officially in the FTC, but anyway, what Lina Khan is saying is, hey, we, the FTC, we need to be given more powers by the government to be able to properly persecute and go after the tech monopolies. China doesn't have to worry about that. Chinese regulators don't have to worry about that. When the directive comes on down from on high, they go. And that directive has been clearly given. And really, it was Jack Ma who kind of set this all into motion about 6 months ago. And so, and it all started with really kind of Ant Financial, not Alibaba, was the first domino to fall in this kind of series of tech monopoly kind of fallout ever since then. Here is it coming full circle back to Ant Financial, where now what we have reported here is that they could see their valuation sink to as low as $29 billion. Yes, you heard that right. $29 billion. Mind you, this was going to be the biggest IPO in the history of IPOs. This was drawing the interest of every investor, every bank. This was the hottest thing in town. It was valued at $320 billion. That was the rumored IPO price. They never did their IPO. They pulled it last minute because Jack Ma's statements just, right? All that got put on the shelf. And now they're saying it could be anywhere from $29 to $115 billion. So best case scenario, you lost roughly a third of, actually not a third, you lost 2/3 of your value in 6 months period of time because of the statements that he made, which really weren't that bad. There was some truth to them. Certainly, in retrospect, very costly statements, but nowhere near the kind of rhetoric that we have in the United States. Still somewhat, still respectful, but still saying that the regulatory environment in China, the regulators in China were slowing innovation, particularly in the fintech space, but with kind of technology in general. That's pretty much what he said. He went into a little bit more detail than that. We covered it on the show 6 months ago and was kind of surprised that he was saying this stuff in the first place. And then he disappeared for a month for, probably some form of reconditioning. And so anyway, now 6 months later, emerging from the rubble, anywhere from a 2/3 valuation hit to possibly a 90% valuation hit in 6 months' time. This is the gamble that you have when you're ultimately operating a business that is beholden to a totalitarian government. So, if you're on its good side everything's hunky-dory and rosy. And then when you're on its bad side, run for cover. So that is the price. Pretty big price. And they made a lesson out of Ant Financial and a bunch of other tech monopolies that are having to deal with this. But the lesson is made very clear. You want to know who's the biggest monopoly in town in China? The CCP, not the tech monopoly. A little bit reversed, seemingly, so far in the US and Europe. So let's go to Clubhouse. We've heard there's been so much talk about Clubhouse. I actually haven't covered much about Clubhouse in the past maybe month or two, as it's been like Clubhouse mania. I've gone on Clubhouse. We've covered some stories with Clubhouse. I've covered what Clubhouse is on the show when it was first kind of popping off earlier this year. I've never understood why I can't easily broadcast this show onto Clubhouse. That was always kind of my question. Like if I was going to do this show on Clubhouse, I have to do it through my phone or something. You can text me. But I don't know. There was friction for me to get this show. It's a live show. So why couldn't I do this show on Clubhouse? That integration has just never come about. I don't know if it's a product roadmap thing that just didn't get into the product roadmap. I don't know if it's deliberate that they want the experience where you're talking on your phone when engaging on Clubhouse. I don't know, but that seemed like a no-brainer to me, and no sign in sight. No sign in sight of that happening. But anyway, if you don't know what Clubhouse is, it's basically like a audio content platform, social network. It's live, right? So it's like live radio, but for the 21st century with social networks, right? So you can kind of see who all your friends are. They did a really good job gating access, so you had to be invited in, and they built some kind of exclusivity around this and got the right kind of tech elite into the app early, so you could just join a room and listen live to prominent people. Elon has been on there multiple times. Elon was on there with Vlad from Robinhood, right? Fireworks, but there's no recall feature, right? It's only live. So when you want to listen to Elon talk to Vlad, you go listen to that on YouTube, not on Clubhouse. So there's some aspects with it, which I think just from a user experience and a product standpoint, maybe those things are on the roadmap to be changed. I don't know. But that's why these numbers make sense to me, is because I think, you had this insane, look at this, 9.5 million downloads in February, down to 2.7 million downloads in March. I mean, it's not like the downloads have disappeared. They're not even in the six figures. But the point of this is, wow, that's a pretty big drop. What's going on with Clubhouse? It had 2.4 million downloads in January. So it went 2.4, 9.6 down to 2.7. In that period of time, they have basically ruffled the feathers of every large tech monopoly. Literally, every large tech monopoly has come out and said that they are launching a Clubhouse copycat. Facebook has unveiled a new suite of audio products in just the past week here. Spotify is getting into live audio. This is from late March. Twitter is allegedly held discussions for $4 billion to buy Clubhouse. That is the valuation that Clubhouse has been or has been referenced to Clubhouse in them raising money. The good news for them is that they did something which Meerkat did not do. And so if anyone doesn't remember Meerkat, I'm sure you probably, if you're watching the show, you probably have heard of Clubhouse. You might have heard of Meerkat. Meerkat is, or was, now today it's known as House Party, and it's actually a pretty cool app. Meerkat sprang to popularity in a somewhat similar way around live video streaming. This was back in 2015. So the app came out in February 2015. It rose to popularity on Product Hunt, which now is owned by AngelList. And then South by Southwest in March of 2015, it just, boom, took off, right? Through the roof usage, downloads, everything. Now, Clubhouse has been able to raise $300 million. Yeah, you heard that right. They've raised $300 million in the past 3 months. Yeah. Are the markets acting a little weird? Do you think anyone thinks there might be inflation coming on $300 million in 3 months? At most recently, so they raised $100 million in January at $1 billion valuation. That's the post money, so 900 pre-billion dollar post, so 10% dilution. Then they raised $200 million at a $4 billion valuation just this past week in April. Yikes. Okay. Now, so 10% dilution for $100 million, 5% dilution for $200 million. Now, granted, they went from 2.4 to almost 10 million downloads month over month. Yes, now it's back down to 2.7. Still, not bad numbers by any stretch of the imagination. Put it in comparison, they had a $100 million valuation in May of last year. So the company is maybe like 15 months old. Their seed round was in January of 2020. We all know what happened then. COVID hit. They raised $10-12 million in the summer of last year. It called an $80-100 million valuation. Now it's a $4 billion company. And it's raised $300 more million in the past few months. Wow. Good for them. The lesson learned there from Meerkat is that Meerkat only pulled down a $12 million round when they really popped off. And then what happened with Meerkat, because Meerkat had a really good like social hack to give you notifications, like, and then they were doing it through Twitter, if I recall, and then Twitter shut down that functionality. You know, they were growth hacking some of the social media platforms, I think Twitter especially. And then Twitter started to throttle that. And then Twitter went to go buy Periscope. And way back machine here. They bought Periscope for $100 million, which is basically a Meerkat, basically a copycat competitor, live video streaming platform similar to Meerkat. So instead of Twitter going after who is the leader, they got Periscope, $100 million. So anyway, Meerkat ultimately pivoted to being called House Party, tweaking some of the model behind it, but ultimately has lived on, but it lost that crazy hockey stick growth. It just wasn't able to sustain it and become a modern monopoly. And then it got copycatted, or other companies bought similar companies. And so, now you see this same thing happening. All the tech monopolies coming after Clubhouse. Clubhouse, good for them on securing the bag quick. $300 million in 3 months, basically. Good for them to secure that while they can. And then, see what happens, because now you got every tech monopoly trying to come after you to compete. Literally, everyone is doing something now with live audio streaming. I mean, let's face it. It's a pain being on Zoom all day long, and you got to just sit there on your computer and you're in front of a screen, and it is miserable. You're just sitting there all day long on video live streams. I am personally very over it all. This was a nice release, right? Hey, it's audio only. There is no video. You can be out going for a walk. You can be out, living your life and still be chit-chatting about tech and political events and all these kinds of things that, the Twitter elite, the tech elite like to do. Will it last, right? And where is Spotify in all of this? I think that's the interesting piece of all of this is, Spotify has been making huge investments the past few years on what they're doing with podcasting. They also bought this company called Betty Labs. And that's Locker Room is their live audio streaming platform, really focused around sports. So different than the kind of like tech elite political conjecture, that arena, which is really the Clubhouse locker room, more on sports. But anyway, to me, Spotify is so well positioned to go after this. And I think that's my biggest question mark as it relates to the Clubhouse product is when you go on to these Clubhouse rooms, it's you and a couple other people, you and a few other people talking about a topic. Look at what's going on with shows just like this one, right? It's live. We have guests on the show. To me, there's such a strong parallel of this business and this content has already been created, is already being created by so many people, by so many creators with shows with much bigger followings than this one. And again, as we've seen with any of these kind of content platform user generated content plays, you got to lock in that supply because you can get the demand, but how do you keep the demand engaged? You got to bring the supply. You got to bring that good content to the forefront. And you can't just go out and buy it. Now, Spotify has done some of that with Joe Rogan and other marquee producers for podcasting. So anyway, that's why I really like Spotify's positioning. I think they've been, in this space for a while. I think Clubhouse is in a race to capture supply and keep supply locked in. How can they lower some of these barriers to entry around supply and still keep that demand interested in coming back and finding, other conversations, even if it means the Clubhouse needs to change the model or not wholesale change the model, but you can innovate on the product. You don't have to be stuck around saying, you can't get historical Clubhouse feeds, right? You can't go and see past sessions, right? It's tough. It's purely live. And unless you find something right there and you got to scroll through it. Yeah, I don't know. All right. I think it needs some serious heavy product innovation and quick. Let's put it that way. Otherwise, yeah, I think they get swallowed or they get beaten. I don't know. We'll see. Good news is they got a boatload of cash to try and figure it out, but it's a race against time at this point. So we wish them the best of luck. Next topic. Univision partners with Google to transform its business and become the media company of tomorrow. Google is to power Univision's digital evolution, enabling the company to deepen relationships with Hispanic audiences and create market-defining content for the next generation of Spanish-speaking viewers. A multi-year strategic partnership. Google Cloud, that makes sense. Google Cloud has been on a partnership spree. Tom Kurian over there, former basically head of Oracle, who left Oracle, who's Larry Ellison's right-hand man, go over to Google Cloud. He's spent a bunch of money trying to have Google Cloud. They're not really going to close the gap on AWS anytime soon, but at least Azure, Microsoft's cloud business unit. And he's good at spending a lot of money, and he's been trying to go and buy what I would call kind of point solutions, like SaaS products, those killer apps. If you're rolling out if you're going to roll out the iPhone all over again, what are those like 5 killer apps that you need to launch the phone to give it what we would call single user utility? Right. So I got to have some key value drivers, value added services, some key apps, some key pieces of functionality that differentiate the out of the box offerings from my cloud offering from Azure and from AWS. So he's been spending a boatload of money on that, and they've been aggressively trying to court kind of like hallmark customers to come onto Google Cloud, giving them sweetheart deals. Ford being one of those. I think the Mayo Clinic being another one of those. And it's really Google Cloud giving them like sweetheart deals and promising the world. And they got infinite money because we're Google, monopoly money. And hey, we'll solve your cloud problem. This one is actually much deeper than that. This one is not only Google Cloud, that's like the Mayo Clinic Google Cloud partnership. It's just Google Cloud. And Mayo went to an abundance of caution to ensure that everyone understood this was only a partnership with Google Cloud. This had nothing to do with Google Health, which is a different business within Google, run by David Feinberg, the former CEO of Geisinger, big healthcare system provider, and so they were making that very clear. Hey, this isn't a cross Google partnership. This is just Google Cloud. This one with Univision, very different. They go into a lot of detail here, saying what Google Cloud will do, and then they say Univision will also collaborate with other Google product areas such as Android, and then look at this list: Android TV OS, YouTube, Google Play, Google Ad Manager, and Google Search to enhance its capabilities and improve the overall viewer experience. Said in other words, Univision is making a deal with the devil. That's what this is. And their hope is that the devil won't screw them in the deal. But you know how they say, don't put all your eggs in one basket? All the eggs and the furnishings and all the toppings, they're all in the Google basket. The whole thing, all in the basket. Here you go, Google. Google will help Univision consolidate multiple digital distribution platforms, modernize its production systems, create a new customer data warehouse, migrate key enterprise applications to Google Cloud. This will allow them to apply AI and ML across this, provide better personalized recommendations, forge stronger advertising relationships. Literally the whole business. It should just be called Univision powered by Google. That's what they should call this. This is a Univision like service and content wrapper with Google underneath. But Google doesn't look like Google had to write a check into this company. It didn't look like Google had to invest in Univision. If it doesn't work, what's the downside for Google? Yeah, they lose some fees. It doesn't work for Univision. This guy, Wade Davis, he's out of there. Oh, yeah. This is a my job is on the line kind of deal, Wade. And you guys got to be in a really tight spot to give literally everything in the kitchen sink to Google. It's a content company that just opened everything, the kimono, every analogy that you can make. Univision just did it and then some. That's the crazy thing to me is Univision and these big content companies, they actually have a lot of assets. They actually have a lot of value, and going and doing a deal with a large tech monopoly is one of many options that they have at their disposal. How about a whole slew of tech startups that are very well financed and looking to partner with large enterprises, right? Look at Roku just came out with the news, right? That they might lose YouTube TV on the Roku. These tech startups, whether it's Roku, whether it's Tile testifying in front of Congress about Apple, whether it's Spotify testifying in front of Congress just the past week about Apple's indiscretions and giving themselves preferential treatment. Google does the same thing. And what Roku is saying is that Google was misusing its monopoly power and trying to impose unfair terms on Roku. It's brinkmanship, and the tech monopoly can bring you all the way to the brink and never blink. You want to know why? Because they have no downside. Yeah, okay. YouTube TV is off for a few weeks, and it's not going to move the needle. Sundar's not going to be calling you up saying, "What are you doing?" Tech monopolies do have a lot of competitors. And, I think this is really a failure on Univision's side. I think they think this is the safe decision. Partnering with Google. Yeah, Google's going to do all of this. All of our problems are solved. Look, we got Sundar in the press release. Google is not going to screw us. They are really a true partner, right? Here's Sundar. We're excited to partner with Univision to use Google Cloud's technology and platforms like YouTube, Play, and Android to inform, entertain, and engage the next generation Spanish-speaking viewers around the world. Why doesn't Google invest in Univision if this is such a big opportunity? Right? Like, if it was me and I'm Sundar and I'm like, whoa, yeah, let's make you a model case study about it. If you trust us completely, then we will help you out. You'll be better off for it. And it's a private company. It's owned by Searchlight Capital. Yeah, maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's really from the private equity firm. Maybe it's these guys just giving too much pressure to Wade and just saying, hey, we got to cut out cost. I don't want to pay for this stuff. Google will. Yeah, do it with Google. Really don't think it's a good decision. You're putting all of your leverage in Google. They've got all the cards. They've got all the data. They know your business better than you know your business. I would not want to be in that position. Meanwhile, there's a bunch of tech startups. Would you call Roku a startup? There's a bunch of tech competitors that are still dwarfed, right? It's literally Roku, 50 plus million customers, 1% of the size of Google. And they are looking for strategic partnerships just like this, what Univision is doing. But Univision didn't have to go this far, right? They could have dangled it more. They could have said, here, Google, well, I'm just going to do the cloud deal because Kurian really wants the cloud deal. But you want the other stuff? Well, okay, you gotta do right by us on the first phase, right? Like, why do you just do the whole thing? You just lose all your leverage. Horribly negotiated, horribly strategized. There's so many alternatives to Google to solve these problems, and you don't have to go to one tech partner to try and solve everything, right? You can take a more nuanced approach and really try to gain a competitive advantage. I don't know. Just this is like textbook for what not to do. Now, we're going to end on a positive note. You want to know why we're ending on a positive note? Because, drum roll, in-person meetings and conferences are back. Well, they're not back exactly yet, but they are on the calendar. So that kind of counts, right? This is the Milken Institute's global conference. It was the first email I got about, kind of like networking professional events that I would go to, and which obviously I've gone virtual. But the first email I got saying we're in person, and that is the global conference. This is in October of 2021, coming to you in person in pretty sure it's Los Angeles, or in Beverly Hills. But anyway, I'm now seeing, other invites and other things come through where people are kind of, whatever it is. They've been vaccinated. They understand it. They've had it. They've got the antibodies. Whatever it is, people are coming back for in-person meetings. Is a beautiful thing to see. I am personally extremely excited to get back to, in person. I think that we've seen some benefit to where you can do some things virtually, right? You can do some things you didn't need to do as much in person as you were doing, maybe in the operation of your business, in e-commerce, in a variety of areas, right? So everything's not going to go back to the more analog way that they were, but there are some things which will be nice to return to the way that they were. And I look forward to that. I hope you do too. Thanks for watching the show. I will talk to you soon.